Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church. I'm Pastor Gary Oatholt. I'm a little embarrassed to admit when I learned why the Mount of Olives in the Bible is named that. I grew up in church and I was very familiar with my Bible. In college, I was a religion major. College was followed by 4 years in seminary, and then a lot of years of being a pastor, learning and teaching people about the Bible. Nevertheless, it was only when I went there to Israel that I put two and two together and came up with four. It's called the Mount of Olives because the mountain is covered in olive trees. It's as simple as that. The slopes are one orchard after another. When I was in Israel, we were going to the Garden of Gethsemane, which, by the way, is a garden of olive trees. Interestingly, when I was there were two trees still growing in the garden that were alive there when Jesus walked in this garden. That was pretty cool to see those. But perhaps even better, our guide had arranged for us to spend some time not in the tourist area of the Garden of Gethsemane, but rather to be able to wander around in a natural grove of olive trees on the mountain. So while we saw the tourist area, to be sure, we also got to meander through a garden of olive trees that was much like what the garden would have looked like when Jesus was there. Frankly, I remember that more than the tourist area. This week we are looking at several specific types of trees that are mentioned as part of the Bible story, and often these trees have a special significance. Trees are mentioned a lot in the Bible, and there are actually 36 specific kinds of trees mentioned at different times. However, this week we are looking at 7 that take on a special significance in the Bible story. As we wrap up this week, let's talk about the olive tree. Olives were an important agricultural crop for Israel, and in fact for all of the Mideast. The oil they got from pressing the olives was used for cooking, to provide fuel for lamps, to act as a balm on wounds, to smooth hair, and to anoint things. For example, when Jacob dreams of the ladder to heaven, he sets a stone on its end and then pours oil on it. The oil won't wash off, and marks the stone so that Jacob can find that special place where he met God again. King David was anointed with oil to mark his special place in God's plan. So of all the uses for olive oil, one of the most significant was to be used in this religious sense. Olive trees were prevalent throughout Israel. The Bible mentions olive trees frequently all the way from Genesis to Revelation. The first appearance happens when Noah is on the ark and sends out a dove to see if the waters were receding. The dove comes back with a twig of an olive tree, and to indicate that the waters were going down. Jeremiah speaks of Israel as an olive tree with God as the farmer. St. Paul refers to Gentile Christians as a wild olive tree that God has grafted into the nurtured olive tree of God's people. And you may not be aware that the word Gethsemane, as in the Garden of Gethsemane, means oil press. There was an oil press near the bottom of the mountain, and the garden around it was called the Garden of the Oil Press, or the Garden of Gethsemane. Olive trees are symbols of God's eternal goodness, faithfulness, peace, and newness of life. Some other trees mentioned in the Bible are pomegranates, oaks, dates, almonds, gopher trees, and even cypress trees. And there are numerous stories where trees are spoken of without mentioning what kind of tree it is. Trees in the Bible represent many different things, but especially now as they turn out their leaves and offer us a rich variety of green colors and hues, perhaps we might best think of them as symbols of new life. Death is not the end. In God, life comes forth. Thanks for watching, and remember to let this day belong to God.